Now the lineup today for the California Angels. They start with Rick Burleson, who is the designated hitter, and then Wally Joyner, the rookie first baseman. Brian Downing, one of last night's stars, hits third. Doug DeCince is the cleanup hitter. Hendrick is the platooning right fielder. Grich at second base. Batting seventh, Dick Schofield. Bob Boone is the Angel catcher, and the batting ninth is the center fielder, Gary Pettis. So that's the lineup. The Angels will send up against left-hander Bruce Hurst, pitcher of the month in the American League in September. He talks about a left-hander in Fenway.
I've been asked the question a lot, how come the lefties, how come I'm winning here? And is it tough to win here as a left-hander? And I don't really think it is. Over the years, Bill Lee, I think, had a winning record here, and Tudor and Bobby Ueda both had winning records here. So I think it's more or less a myth that a lefty can't win here. And between Bill Lee and us three, Tudor, Ueda, and I, there hasn't been any lefties in between, so you can't compare it to anybody. So I don't think that you have to change as a left-handed pitcher. You don't have to do anything different here. You just stay within yourself and make good pitches like you do in any ballpark or against any team. I think you get good results.
And the first pitch is a good pitch for a strike. And the count 0-1 as we're underway in game two. Burleson, Joyner, and Downing in bright sunshine at Fenway Park. And it's quickly 0-2.
When you talk about the bright sunshine, that's something that the hitters are going to have to contend with. Right now, they are both the pitcher and the hitter in the sun, but pretty soon you can see the shadows creeping up. It's much more difficult to see the ball. You got the good case in point is staying within yourself, something that Roger Clemens was unable to do last night, and a little bit more of a thrower than a pitcher.
Burleson looping it to shallow right field, and Barrett makes the catch, and that will be the Sun field. In another hour or so, the sun will be shining directly into the eyes of the second baseman and right fielder. One gone. Joyner coming up. And the Red Sox defensively, the outfielder Rice, Armas, and Evans. The infield Boggs at third, Owen at short, Barrett at second, and Buckner at first. Gedman back of the plate. And Hurst working now on Joyner with one out, and the base is empty. Wally Joyner with a couple of hits last night. Both doubles. He doubled in the first inning to right and then doubled to left down the line in the second inning to drive in a run. The American League's all-star first baseman, voted in as a rookie, and drove in 100 runs this season.
We talked a little bit last night about somewhat dismal second half, especially when you compare it to the first half, but the two doubles last night, one right down the left field line, went with a fastball, and then got a 2-1 pitch the first time and drilled it to right field. Talked to him before the game, and he said he had a heart-to-heart talk with Bobby Knopf, who's the first base coach, and he said, yes, I am tired, but you don't get in the playoffs very often, so let's go all out. And last night he was able to do that.
2 balls and 2 strikes to count.
An interesting thing about what Bruce Hurst said is that stay within yourself. He's got an overpowering fastball well into the 90-mile-per-hour range, good overhand curveball, but the pitch that has really made him the big winner. If you look at his record, a couple of 12-game winning seasons here in Boston, last year 11 and 13, this year missed 45 days with a groin injury. He's come up with a forkball that gives him that third pitch, which makes the other 2 pitches that much better.
Grounded to third, Boggs knocking it down, and that's all. Wade getting there and then having no play on it, and so Joyner is on.
Again, another example why Wally Joyner is such a good hitter. Hurst makes a good pitch away, doesn't try to pull it, just reaches out and pokes it. Boggs playing off the line, playing the percentage type of baseball, playing the gaps where the balls are mostly hit, keeps it from being a double.
So Joyner at first base on what is scored a base hit, and Downing at the plate. In there, 0-1. If you weren't with us last night, and there are the umpires, headed by Larry McCoy, who works the plate, and last night's plate umpire, Larry Barnett, down the right field line. We pointed out last night only one true, consistent base-stealing threat on either team, and that would be Gary Pettis. Dick Schofield will run occasionally. Marty Barrett will run occasionally. Not Joyner, though, and nobody else with any consistency. Joyner with a very short lead, in fact, at first base.
It's also very difficult to run against Bruce Hurst. Big high kick. Can freeze the runner. See a good fastball on the inside part of the plate. And really what you're going to do if you're going to steal on Hurst is you just have to guess. You have to guess that he's going home. You take off for second. Otherwise, very difficult to steal on. And last night we talked about also Rich Gedman, 86 attempts to steal. He threw out 44 base runners, over 50%.
1 ball, 2 strikes to count on Downing.
And to a man, if you talk about last night's ball game, they talk about the pitch that Clemens threw, the good slider, low and away to Downing that they thought was a strike, was called a ball, and then he came up with a 2-run base hit that changed the complexion of the game.
And as you pointed out last night, if you can go back to one pitch that set the inning up, the 2-1 pitch to Bob Boone, which turned into ball 3 and eventually a walk. The dimensions at Fenway Park, with its nooks and its crannies, and 420 to the deepest part of the ballpark, the triangle in right center. Joyner taking a minuscule lead, held on by Buckner. And the 1-2 pitch. Sheens is grounded toward third. Boggs goes to second for the force out. So Downing hits into a force. Joyner is gone, and with 2 down, it'll bring up the Sensei.
That was that little fork ball that we talked about, and if you're wondering what a fork ball is, it's thrown very similar to a pitch that if you've been listening to really any Major League Baseball all year, or you've gone to the ballpark, and if you're going to be tuning in tonight to watch Dwight Gooden and Mike Scott pitch in the National League first playoff game, it's the split finger fastball, except the fork ball is thrown a little bit slower, except that Hurst has such an outstanding arm. It looks like a split finger fastball, drops on the way to home plate.
The Sensei hits a fly ball to shallow right field, and Evans coming over with Armish, and it's Evans making the catch, and the sun already creating some problems. After a half, California nothing, Boston coming up. Let's take a look now at the lineup for the Boston Red Sox. Wade Boggs to lead things off at third base, and then Marty Barrett batting second. As was the case last night, Buckner hits third, Rice hits fourth, and Baylor is the DH. Dwight Evans in right. Gedman batting in the 7th spot. Armish hitting 8th. And Spike Owen, the shortstop. Same lineup as McNamara employed in Game 1. Meanwhile, Kirk McCaskill working for the Angels, and here's Bob Boone's assessment of him.
Kirk has come very fast for the Angels. He's got tremendous talent, outstanding fastball, 2 breaking balls, and a changeup. Has really developed into one of the top pitchers in the league with his consistency, and it's something that he learned maybe after about 3 months of pitching in the big leagues. He's gotten better and better since about the halfway point of last year, and he is one of the top pitchers in our league right now.
Defensively for the Angels, Downing, Pettis, and Hendrick. The infield, the Sensei, Schofield, Grich, and Joyner. Boone catching. And Mr. Palmer, your assessment of Kirk McCaskill.
Well, I kind of have to agree with Bob Boone. He really has improved. Last year, a 12-game winner. This year, look at the graphics, 17 wins. The earned run average has come down a run a game. I think he points to one game last year. He said he had a no-hitter going late in the year against Detroit. Gibson hit a home run. And he said the biggest thing he had, and if you really look at his career, Al, he has only pitched about 600 innings. So you will no doubt document his past history as a hockey player at the University of Vermont and so forth, but really has not pitched that much and has learned how to pitch in the major leagues, and he's done it well. He's kind of canned the slider, gone to basically a changeup, a curveball, and a fastball that I think the hitters described as sneaky. He's not overpowering like Witt or Clemens, but the ball gets up there in a hurry, and when you mix it with the other 2 pitches, he's very successful. Is a strikeout pitcher.
That's exactly the way he described himself the other day when I asked him for a self-scouting report. Sneaky fast. Boggs to lead things off. Boggs, Barrett, and Buckner in the bottom of the first inning. No score in Game 2. Wade Boggs, the batting champion at 357. In there. Wade Boggs spent 6 seasons in the minor leagues before finally getting called up. And there were a couple of reasons as you look back. One of them, there was some question as to whether he could cut it defensively, and the other was a lack of power, because throughout his career he has been a 300 hitter. The only time he did not hit 300 was in his very first year as a professional and a half season, and since then 10 consecutive years up and over 300.
If you go back to 1980, he was available in the 25,000 AAA draft. In other words, any team in the major leagues, 25 other teams, could have had Wade Boggs for $25,000. Would have been a rather tidy investment.
In the air to deep left center field, and Pettis looking up at the wall. It is off the wall and bounding away from him. Hendrick picks it up and throws a rainbow to third, and backed up by McCaskill as Boggs triples.
They've been trying to get him out with curveball. There is one up in the strike zone. This is a hitter's type of day. Flag blowing straight out. Right there, Pettis sees the ball is going to be off the wall, and then the carom's over his head. Hendricks is there. Makes a strong throw to third, but you can see it's very high. And an alert Kirk McCaskill backing up, where the ball goes in the dugout for not an inside park home run, but a triple and a run on plated for the Red Sox on the throwing error by Hendricks.
Pettis looked like he was in a high life Fontaine. As it bounded away, Boggs gets a triple. The infield plays back, and the pitch is inside. Ball 1 to Barrett. 1-0 the count.
I think going into this series, there was a question. Boggs missed the entire last weekend with a hamstring pull. Certainly did not seem to bother him on that triple.
Nearly a wild pitch. 2-0. And so the crowd sitting on its hands last night, not much to cheer about, very much into it very early today.
Again, you go back to that 4-run second inning. That will take a crowd out of a ball game, and that's exactly what the Angels did with a 4-run second inning last night. One thing to point out here is, as a pitcher, you do not want to have big innings. Roger Clemens had one last night, allowing 4 runs as you took along the concerned Gene Mauch. McCaskill can give them up one at a time, because the Angels showed they can score runs. They scored 8 last night, and you don't want to have the big innings. Lead off triple, give him the run. You get 2 strikes, maybe you can go for the strikeout, but the one thing you want to avoid is the big inning early in the ball game.
2 balls, 2 strikes to count. Nobody out. Boggs at third. And the 2-2 pitch is sliced foul. Still 2-2 with Bill Buckner on deck.
Again, as a pitcher, if you know your hitters, Marty Barrett with only 31 strikeouts and 625 times at bat, you're not really thinking strikeout, even though you'd like to have one. You're thinking more of a pop-up, so you might want to go with a fastball up in the strike zone and hope that he'll swing at a bad pitch, but pretty disciplined hitter.
Just inside. It fooled him, and Barrett was lucky that pitch wasn't over. His hand was coming off the bat as you look at John McNamara.
It's one of those backdoor curveballs that you give up. See the spin, you just figure it's going to stay inside. And again, we talked about McCaskill's good curveball. It can bite so sharply, especially if it's down in the strike zone. That one wasn't, that you'll give up on it and it will come back across the plate.
Boggs at third. And the 3-2 to Barrett is hit down the line in right field for a base hit. That scores Boggs. Hendrick plays the carom. Barrett has a double. The Red Sox have the lead.
Just like last night, the only run the Red Sox scored was on a single to right field by Barrett. A fastball up and away again. This time he hits it right down the line. Very difficult corner. The ball gets by you. It's 3 bases. Hendricks makes the play. Barrett easily into second with a double. So you've seen a poke ball down the line that just stayed fairly fair. A routine fly ball to left field, but because of the dimensions of this ballpark and the way the wind's blowing, we're looking at a 1-0 deficit and a runner in scoring position.
And Barrett's third hit of this young series. He was the only Red Sox with 2 last night. Buckner is the batter. In there, and the count is 0-1. In 16 innings of work this season against Boston, McCaskill had not yielded an earned run. He's given up 2 runs, both unearned. So an earned run here in the bottom of the first. 1-0 Boston. Barrett at second, and nobody out.
And if you're Billy Buckner, you do want to pull the ball. You want to advance Barrett to third base.
Hit to center sharply, but right to Pettis, who makes the play. And a little jump as well, and it's a little tough even at this hour with the sun relatively high in the sky, and it's going to get worse for the outfielders. And it's going to get worse, as you can see, for the hitters very shortly, as that shadow line extends past the plate. Jim Rice, 0 for 4 last night.
Also, the sun is a situation I pitched many times here late in the season where when you look for your sign, you try to pick up home plate, you look right over the upper deck and you look right into the sun, and it's very hard sometimes to pick up home plate, so you don't get as good a perspectives that you would like to pick up the catcher's target. So not only does it affect the outfielders, it can sometimes affect the pitchers.
And it's what you call your high sky today. Ice blue, totally cloudless, crystal clear. It is just a magnificent day in Boston. And that panoramic shot will give you an idea of the type of autumn afternoon it is in the hub.
Temperatures expected to reach the mid-60s. And if you're a hitter, you love these kind of conditions. Look at the flag.
Grounded to the left side, and Schofield gets Barrett in a rundown and tags him out. And a nice play by Dick as Barrett got caught, hung up between second and third. And not only does Schofield do the job, he does it without a rundown, and he does it by keeping Rice at first base.
Well, this is a no-no again. Any ball hit to your right as a base runner, you can see right there Marty realizes he's made a mistake. And this is the good part of the play. Little fake by Dick, the tag, and Rice doesn't have a chance to advance.
So Don Baylor is at the plate. Outside on the count, 1-0. If anybody would know how to execute a rundown play, it would be Schofield. He's known about that, I'm sure, since he's been able to walk. His father was able to do that with perfection through the years. Drilled to left field and by Downing and off the fence and into third on a long single goes Rice. And what a big play now with Barrett getting hung up between second and third. Still 1-0 instead of 2-0. And the crowd coming down on third base coach Rene Laxman, contending he should have sent Rice in.
Well, he might have sent him in, but they would have sent him back to the dugout for the third out.
Absolutely.
Again, Downing makes a good play. What you try to do here is play really deep enough where you can get back for the line drive, except Baylor hit the ball so hard, Downing had no chance to do that, but also shallow enough so you can come in and catch the line drive over shortstop.
Now Evans with runners at first and third looks at a strike. So a triple off the wall by Bodge. Barrett with a double down the right field line. Buckner hit a shot to center. Baylor hits a shot off the wall. And there's a shot to center field, and Pettis gingerly comes in and makes the catch. So McCaskill was no mystery in the first. The Red Sox get a run and lead 1-0.
Cy Young Award winner Dwight Gooden goes against the man who could win it this year. 1986 strikeout king Mike Scott. New York meets Houston. Game 1 tonight.
In Boston, Al Michaels and Jim Palmer, Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. Angels winning last night by a score of 8-1. And Bobby Grich will be up second. Talks about his recent thumb injury.
We played KC in Kansas City, and Danny Jackson threw an excellent game against us, and he was pounding that hard slider in. Jammed me a couple times, broke a couple bats, went over to Texas and did the same thing on Thursday night over there. Broke 2 bats over there, got jammed. So just the nerve and the base of my thumbs got beat up a little bit. But so I took three days off in Texas, tried to get the thing healed up, and it's come around for me. I'll be wearing a little fiberglass pad on it with some foam underneath it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll be out there somehow.
And there is Gretsch, who is on deck as Hendrick leads off in the second inning. George Hendrick at the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. Waves at the split finger and misses, and the count 1-2.
Another fork ball, and it's interesting. The very important pitcher, as we said last night, for the California Angels, Donnie Moore, and what the pitch that sets up his repertoire, the fastball and the slider, again, is the fork ball. You ask the hitter, what is the difference between a split-fingered fastball and a forkball? They normally say, in most cases, you can pick up the forkball a little bit earlier, but not off Bruce Hurst. He throws so hard.
Hendrick waves at another one and doesn't get it. And it's the first strikeout for Hurst. 1 away here in the second inning.
We just talked about having a good enough fastball to establish something, and there's the forkball. You see the bottom just drop out, and the natural reaction, you think the ball is going to stay about knee high. You go to hit it in that area, and all of a sudden it's about 6 inches lower. And when you do hit it, it's a ground ball. Very effective pitch.
Now Bobby Gretsch. Check swing foul. Gretsch, for the most part, platooned this year. And that was the case last night as well, with Rob Wilfong getting the start. And this could very well be the swan song for Bobby Gretsch. Some question as to whether he'll be back with the Angels or whether he'll be back at all next year. And in talking with him the other day, I got the feeling that he's about ready to wrap it up.
Well, we talked last night. We saw him with the Eskimo jacket on. He'd like to have all 7 games played in Anaheim. He's grown up in Long Beach. Played for the Orioles. He's an outstanding shortstop at the minor league level. Came up, was Golden Glove second baseman. And I think the happiest thing is going back to the Angels. He's really signed with them twice. So if he would play at all, there's only one chance, and that would be in Anaheim. And again, he's one of the tenuous 9, so to speak. They have an option on his services. But he said there's only a small crack in the door that he will play again. It would only be in Anaheim.
Broken bat, little looper into left center field, and that finds its way in for a base hit. So the Angels, with their second hit, Joyner with the infield single in the first, and now Gretsch shattering his bat and reaching here with 1 out in the second inning, and Schofield coming up. And what an odd sight that is to know that that man, number 44, Reggie Jackson, is not in the lineup on the 8th day of October.
It's the 40-year-old syndrome. Your manager feels that you have somebody better against left-handed pitching, and that's the case. We saw George Hendrick strike out, but George had a pretty good year. That's 275 with 14 home runs. And again, has been one of the role players that has gotten the Angels into the playoff. And Gene Mox's job as a manager is to make those decisions. I think Reggie felt he was going to get about 500 at bats. Didn't quite get that. Would like to be playing, but not at his age.
Schofield hits it high in the air to left center field, and it's Armas circling it and making the catch. So there are 2 down, and Boone coming up.
As you mentioned, Al, you get the feeling that on routine plays you're going to have enough time to fight off the sun, get your sunglasses down. But how about the line drives or the balls that are the questionable plays? That's when the sun is really going to affect you, and plus later in the game when the sun gets a little bit lower. It was a routine fly ball, and Armas made it look a little bit difficult, mainly because of the sun.
Bob Boone, who was 2 for 3 last night and drew the walk that ignited the 2-out second inning 4-run rally. Boone, who has now caught more games than anyone in history outside of Al Lopez. Looks at the strike. 0-1. Boone, whose father Ray, of course, a great major leaguer for years, and Bob now has a 16-year-old son who's a fine ball player, being scouted by Grandpa.
Early a shortstop, I think by the name of Brett. Kurt Gowdy was talking about Bob's father Ray. Said he may have been the best hitter he ever saw that came to Fenway Park and hit. And that's quite a statement. Kurt was Red Sox broadcaster for many years. see Bob Boone way out on front on that fork ball. Again, if you just had a fork ball, it'd be one thing, but Bruce Hurst throws around 91, 92 miles per hour. He's shown him the curveball. He's gotten it over. So he's basically giving them 3 pitches to look for. He's getting them all over. And low in the strike zone.
Fouled away. Boone trying to get into the World Series for the second time. He was the Philly catcher in 1980 when they beat Kansas City. His father also played in the World Series. Interesting to note, his father, Ray, played in 6 Major League games with the Cleveland Indians in 1948. Just 6. Was eligible for the World Series, got into 1 game, and struck out against Warren Spahn. Popped in the air. Boggs, and some help now from Owen. And it's the better angle for Spike, who drops the ball. As he crossed into the shade, he drops the ball. And thus Owen, who made an error last night, will get charged with another one.
Again, the shortstop has the better angle, as you said, but it looks like a late call, and right there you see the shadow. Didn't look like he picked the ball up, but should have made the out very easily. Last night, first error was on a ball where he underestimated the speed of Rob Wilfong. Took a little bit too long, about 3 or 4 steps. If you look at that graphic, it's played very well over the last 129 games, but if you add the last 2 errors in 2 games.
Breaking pitch, got him looking, strike 3. And at the end of an inning and a half, it's the Red Sox 1 and the Angels nothing. National League Championship Series begins in about 4.5 hours. The New York Mets against the Houston Astros. Dwight Gooden and Mike Scott is tonight's matchup. Keith Jackson and Tim McCarver will be with you from the Astrodome tonight on ABC. As Gedman starts the bottom of the second with a base hit into left center field. So the Red Sox, who hit some shots off McCaskill but settles for 1 in the bottom of the first, begin with a ringing base hit by Gedman in the bottom of the second.
So you try to make an adjustment. This is a changeup. They hit the curveball and the fastball. Not a bad pitch, except it ends up in left center field. So Bob Boone talked about Kirk McCaskill maturing. Saw that his fastball and his curveball got hit hard in the first inning. You try to go to something differently, and Gedman stings it into left center field. You got to be wondering what is going to be working for you.
Half swing by Armish, and the count is 0-1. Cast of characters. In there again, and the count now 0-2 on Armish, who was 0 for 3 last night. Tony Armish, originally signed with Pittsburgh, some fine years with Oakland out of Venezuela. Foul tip and held by Boone, and now Armish is contending that it bounced. The plate umpire is McCoy, and McCoy getting some help at first base from Terry Cooney, who agrees with Armish that the ball bounced, and thus it is not a strikeout.
No, but an excellent snag job by Bob Boone, and there you see the ball bounce. We talked last night about his ability to frame pitches, try to get away with another one. First thing I said, doesn't get away with that one. Tony just completely fooled by the curveball. And again, the shadows already, Al, have crept a little bit in front of home plate. Makes the spin on that curveball hard to pick up. We said McCaskill has an awfully good one.
One out. Gedman at first base, and Spike Owen. Switch hitter. Owen, along with the outfielder Dave Henderson, coming over from Seattle in the deal that sent Ray Quinones, among others, to the Mariners. Looking at a strike, and so Owen has helped to solidify the Boston infield, though he's had his problems already with 2 errors in the championship series. At the plate, he has struggled.
Only hitting about 143 from the left side. And it's interesting when you contrast Gary Pettis, who's struck out over 125 times, when you talk to the batting instructor Moose Stubing for the California, said they tried to shorten his stroke. If you look at Spike Owens, does not have any home run power whatsoever. Hit 1 home run and hit that right-handed this year. has a pretty long swing for a contact hitter. Look how high his hands are. No doubt might be lowering those hands a little bit in the future and trying to make more contact. That's what he has to do to help them offensively. They got him for his defense, and he has done the job, and as you said, with the exception of the last 2 games. But he has to make contact, advance some runners, occasional base hit.
1-2 pitch is chopped towards short. Schofield has it take a wicked hop, and it winds up in center field. And a break for the Red Sox. It would have at least been a fourth, probably not a double play. It was too slowly hit, and instead runners at first and second.
Oh, good curveball, just slapped to the infield. Schofield immediately knows, as you said, he can only get one, and right there it hits the edge of the dirt and the grass. Base hit into left center field.
And now Wade Boggs, who trickled off the wall, takes a strike in the count 0-1. Boston 1, California nothing, with Gedman at second and Owen at first and 1 down in the bottom of the second inning. On the outer half for a strike, and it's 0-2.
As we said, they are trying to get Boggs out with curveballs. First time they got one up in the strike zone, he tripled off the wall. Something he is so adept at doing.
Whacks it foul. As is the case with most great contact hitters, he will foul off a lot of pitches with 2 strikes.
We talked about last year hitting .390 with 2 strikes. You go back to look at the American League batting championships.
As it's shot to the left of the mound and lost in the sun by McCaskill. So we've already seen the outfielders with problems, and now on a chopper, McCaskill can't find the baseball. Remember, years ago, it was Billy Lowe's of the Dodgers, and they laughed at him when he said, "I lost a ground ball in the sun." He has some company.
As I said, it's right over the right, really the third base dugout, and right here, he looks like he's going to field it easily. Right there, you can see him duck. He doesn't see the ball at all. Loads up the bases.
And thus the Red Sox on a single by Gedman, then a bad hop single by Owen, and a ball lost in the sun, have the bases loaded, and Barrett is the batter. Strike. It is ruled. No, it has not ruled anything yet. And they're going to give McCaskill an error. In there, and with the infield at double play depth, again McCaskill gets out in front, 0-2. Bases loaded, 1 out. Sox trying to break it open early. A looper foul. Barrett went that way in the first inning for a double.
And again last night, and Marty Barrett came up 3 years ago, hit .303 last year, down to .266. A lot of people accused him of not playing as hard with the same intensity. He said, well, I'm not going to play golf. I'm going to do Nautilus, do aerobics. No personal appearances, and he's had a fantastic year for the Red Sox.
0-2 pitch is grounded, base hit in the left field as Gedman scores, and they hold Owen at third. It's 2-0. And Marty Barrett, 2 hits last night, now has 4 consecutive hits in 2 games.
Well, this is where the strength pays off. He says that by doing Nautilus, he's been able to pull the ball a little bit more. You saw him fight off the ball away down the right field line. McCaskill tries to come up and in quick enough. He said when you're a little bit stronger, you know where the bat head is. He got the bat head out, single in the left field for another run.
And Marcel Latchman, the pitching coach, comes to the mound, and the irony here is as he goes to the mound, he passes his brother, Rene Latchman, who is the third base coach for the Red Sox. Not exchanging secrets here, however. They both were in the same shot. Former manager right there of the Seattle Mariners and Milwaukee Brewers, and now coaching third under McNamara. Bill center in the first. So the bases loaded. Owen at third with Bonds at second and Barrett at first. There's Spike. Bonds and Barrett infield looking for the double play. And Buckner taking low, ball one. 1-0. Okay. Ferris and Dixon. What year would that be? The Boston American.
It says 2 cents, so it's not yesterday.
Yeah, no.
Or is that 3 cents?
3 cents. Chopper fielded by Joyner, who goes to Schofield. One back to McCaskill. He's on the bag for the double play. Big double play. And the Red Sox come up with just one. After 2-0 Boston. Big play here by McCaskill covering, and it takes the Red Sox out of what would have been a very big inning.
Well, we talked about the Angels defense, second best in the American League. Looks like spring training. Joyner to Schofield to McCaskill covering. You just hesitate slightly, you don't turn the double play and a run scores. As it is only 2-0, you stay out of the big inning situation.
And Gary Pettis, the number 9 hitter, leading things off. Switch hitter to be followed by Burleson and Joyner. Third inning, 2-0 Boston. Fouled away, and it's 1-1. By the way, they've changed the scoring. What was originally posted as the error charged to McCaskill on the chopper he lost in the sun is now an infield single for Boggs, and thus 7 hits for Boston. Tomorrow is a day off, and that man, Oil Can Boyd, will be on the mound Friday when we'll be in Anaheim at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock on the Pacific Coast. Oil Can Boyd and John Candelaria in Game 3 Friday night. Grounded toward the hole. Nice stop by Boggs with good range. Gets him. And it's tough to get Pettis.
Even though it's a little easier from the right side, Boggs said he thought he would be bothered by the hamstring going to his left. We've already seen the triple. Everybody talked about his defensive inadequacies when he first came up. No longer. Makes the play when he had to. Perfect throw right to Buckner.
Burleson is the batter. By the way, we saw the old newspaper, Ferris against Dixon. That was 1946. World Series, Red Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals, with the Cardinals winning it in 7. In their first strike, and the count 0-1. The count. The bird.
Good enough for what?
That's Mark Friedrich.
How many more times?
In the air to right field. And Evans with the shades down makes the catch. 2 away. Mark Friedrich, who's from New England. And remember the year he had with the Tigers in '76, talking to the baseball and the antics on the mound. And I believe he's in the pool building business in New England. Which is a very seasonal job, I would assume.
Especially up here.
Yeah. The bird himself.
We're not talking Anaheim.
No.
Villa Park and Anaheim Hills all year round there. Maybe he will be moving. Boy, what a year he had.
Wally Joyner with a count 1-0, hits it high in the air and deep to right field, and into the corner goes Evans and makes the catch. He plays it like he owns it, and he should. He's owned it since 1972. Dewey is the saloon for Evans. That's his nickname as he and the Red Sox trot off the field.
Another look. The only where you can hit a cheap home run as a left-hander is right down the line, the foul pole. Then it goes back again. Right to the wall. Doesn't even spill the drinks to the out.
Is being brought to you by McDonald's. It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
Bottom of the third inning at Fenway Park with Jim Rice at the plate. He has swung and missed at the first offering from Kirk McCaskill, and the 0-1 pitch is outside. 1-1 on Rice, who'll be followed by Baylor and Evans. Middle of the order, bottom of the third. 2-0 Red Sox. Good fastball. 1-2. One way to take a look at today's game. The ultimate cheap seats. Good breaking pitch. Got him. Off speed, low and in, and down he goes.
Those are only cheap seats if you get down safely, or should I say if you get up safely.
One away. Well, tonight, game 2, or game 1 of that series, tomorrow night anyway, game 2 of the National League Championship Series, Mets and Houston. And then Friday, we're back with you from Anaheim as it's grounded foul outside third by Baylor, who checks his bat and will probably go back for a new one. Again, tomorrow night, game 2, tomorrow night, New York and Houston, game 1 obviously tonight. Game 3 of our series on Friday. And the night games all begin at 8 Eastern time. Baylor, who singled in the first inning. Singled off the wall.
Very hard. A rocket off the wall. Interesting thing, there are so many Red Sox, and everybody looks at this ballpark. The wind blowing out today. There's a home run ballpark. Baylor with 31 home runs, 22 on the road, only 9 here.
Very deep and very foul.
And you go to Dwight Evans, 26 home runs, 18 on the road, 8 here at Fenway Park. Gedman, 16, 14 on the road, only 2 here. It's a little bit more difficult as a left-handed hitter to hit home runs in Fenway Park.
2-2 the count. It is odd the way things have worked out for the Red Sox this season, playing extremely well on the road, and as Jim just pointed out, a lot of power away from home, and the great pitching. And for years, the Red Sox have relied on offense and power and bludgeoning you in Fenway Park. And time after time, coming up short, but this year the pitching really made the difference. And Baylor is on. So Don draws a walk. He's at first base with 1 down. And Evans coming up. In the first inning, Boggs with that triple off the wall, and then Barrett a right field double. Then in the second inning, they got some breaks after Gedman with a base hit. Owen with a bad hop single. Boggs with an infield hit that McCaskill lost in the sun, and then Marty Barrett drove in his second run of the game with a base hit to left.
It's amazing what a long foul ball will do to you as a pitcher. Become very defensive. We saw a walk maybe as a result of that. Again, when you trail early in a game and you know who you're pitching against, and Hurst has pitched so well, as you said, pitcher of the month, 5-0 in September, even though his October start was a little bit of a disappointment, though they had clinched the pennant. If you're Kirk McCaskill, you know you can't give up a whole lot of more runs, so therefore you maybe pitch a little defensively. And if you pitch defensively in this park, pitching around guys being too careful, you pitch and you walk a Baylor to get to an Evans, the score can go from 2-0 to 4-0 in a hurry.
Good move to first base. McCaskill quick on his feet, and well, he should be, because Jim touched on it before. McCaskill, great hockey player in college at the University of Vermont, and started his pro sports career in hockey. Drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, played briefly in their farm system. His father was a good hockey player who had a cup of coffee in the NHL with the Minnesota North Stars, Ted McCaskill, and also played with the old Los Angeles Sharks of the World Hockey Association. Yes, Virginia, there was a Los Angeles Sharks. High fly ball to right field. Fading on it is Hendrick. And he one-hands it, and again, everything out there is going to be an adventure today.
Well, that's also the nature of George Hendricks. George has been known to be a little lackadaisical. He's had a fine career over, really, since about 1971, but he makes everything look pretty casual, and that was no exception. Sometimes you don't know if that was the son or that's just George.
Exactly.
Because he's leading the league in inseams.
pretty good Quinella. Gedman takes a strike in the count 0-1.
Longest inseam in the history of baseball. You look at his pants. Surprised he hasn't caught him on his spikes.
Another move to first base, and he's keeping Baylor honest.
Throw a fucking ball back.
And Baylor is not really much of a base-stealing threat. 2 outs. Not going to really be worried about breaking up a double play, but that is one thing he can do with the best of them. So you try to get as big a lead as you can, so you can break up a double play. But here with 2 outs, I doubt if we would see Baylor running.
Hit down to third. Nice stop by the Sensei. Goes to short way for the Forest, and that's after Boston in the third. We played 3 at Fenway in Game 2. 2-0 Red Sox. Marty Barrett, 4 for 6 already in the championship series. Surrounded by a lot of stars, but fits in very nicely here.
You know, you see all these other guys getting a lot of media and a lot of publicity and everything, but I'm the type of guy that I've never really liked that. And I've always felt that the less attention people pay to you, the less they're going to know about you. And as long as I keep on getting 3-1 fastballs, that's fine with me. Because I see guys like Rice and Boggs and Buckner and them getting 3-1 changeups and sliders, and that don't sound like any fun.
Marty Barrett, who has driven in both runs thus far today, as we go to the 4th inning at Fenway Park, Game 2. Angels winning last night 8-1. Red Sox leading today 2-0. And here's Brian Downing. 0-1. Downing, DeCense, and Hendrick. Hit to center field, and Armas comes up and has to play it on a hop, so it's a base hit for Downing, and hit number 3 for the Angels. They've all been singles. It's the first time they've gotten the leadoff man on today, and it will bring up Doug DeCense.
Doug DeCense.
Doug DeCense
Excuse me, Alex.
hit .256 during the regular season.
Well, he did, and as we talked about last night, separated shoulder, has really a chronic back problem. And another one of the players that is in his last year of his contract and had a great year, I believe in 82, and every year it's slipped. This year his batting average has gone up. I guess maybe being on the last year of your contract is a little bit of a motivator, reason for incentive.
It was a career year for DeCense in 82. Hit .301, 30 home runs, and finished 3rd behind Robin Yount and Eddie Murray in the MVP balloting that season.
Doug talked about hitting here in Fenway Park. He said you have a great tendency to want to pull the ball. In other words, the left shoulder flies. You look out, you come in here as a ball player, the first thing your eyes see if you're a right-handed hitter is the fence out in left field, and if the hitter moves that left shoulder too quickly, you have no chance of staying with the ball. And right there, home run swing, pulled off the ball, and if you do that, hit a lot of ground balls, you miss the ball, and you end up with your face down by a third base coach.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count on DeCense. Gene Mock, who began his managerial career with the Philadelphia Phillies back in 1960. Gene, by the way, well, he was more than a fringe player. He was not a spectacular major league player by any stretch of the imagination, but did play with the Red Sox at one point in his career as DeCense whacks it into left for a base hit, and Downing pulls in at second. So runners at first and second with nobody out, and George Hendrick coming to the plate.
Well, Doug stayed right with that curveball, and again, a lot of times when you're hitting well, Doug last night, single right center. If you get 2 strikes, you shorten your stroke, got a curveball up in the strike zone, and did not pull out, just tried to make contact and just whacked it into left field.
The Red Sox will now discuss the options here defensively, and let's see about the Angels, who love to sacrifice. We talked about their prowess in laying them down and bunting and the type of baseball that Gene Mock likes to play. And here you have Hendrick, who can hit one out in a situation where Mock may have him lay one down. Let's see. This team, as you can see right there, leading the American League this season with 81 sacrifices as he takes outside. 1-0.
Well, George sacrificed 3 times during the course of the season. Again, I think one of the interesting things about Mock is that he very rarely asks his players to do things they're incapable of doing. So if George is not a good bunter, we most likely will see him swinging away, and we did.
And he pops it up, and the infield fly rule is in effect, so it's an automatic out. As Wade Boggs handles it, 1 gone. So Hendricks swinging away.
It's hard to tell from that look if George missed the sign or if that Gene's just a little disappointed.
I think he'd be a little angrier if he missed the sign. It was almost a look as if, you know, they had it back.
He would have preferred the blooper into right center.
Grich singled in the 2nd inning. So the Angels with runners at first and second, 1 out. 2-0 Boston in the top of the 4th on a spectacular day in Boston.
We talked about Bruce Hurst being on the save list for just about 45 days from the end of May to the middle of July. When he came back, his second start was a 4-1 loss against the Angels. Bobby Grich hit a solo home run over the center field fence in Anaheim. High fastball out over the plate, so that's where Bobby likes the ball. Get his arms extended. Of course, Bruce Hurst knows that, and he's been able to really keep the ball down in the strike zone.
2-0 the count. Red Sox with 7 hits, all in the first 2 innings.
I think Grich has had an interesting year. International Player of the Year, I believe in 1971, with 39 home runs. Hit 30 home runs for the Angels. Really one of the league leaders in 81, the strike year, with 22. The first infielder to hit a home run or to tie for a home run league since Roger Hornsby did it.
Mets and Astros, Game 1, National League Championship Series, Astrodome, 8 o'clock Eastern. Just missing. And the count now 3 balls and 1 strike on Bobby Grich. Grich, the number 6 hitter. The Schofield will be next. Downing is at second, and DeCince away to his lead at first. 3-1 pitch. Fouled away. Now the count's 3-2. Let's see if Mock has the runners going here. Grich this season struck out 54 times, 313 at-bats. Pretty high rate.
And also, Hurst is a strikeout type of pitcher, but it's just one of the many decisions the manager has to make. And it's a calculated gamble here because of Hurst's ability to strike batters out.
Runners go, grounded to third, and Boggs knocks it down, and that's all. And Wade had a lot of things to think about at one time. Runners going, Downing coming into the picture, the possible force play, and through it all, he has it carom off his chest, and the bases are loaded.
No doubt will be an error. Again, as you said, he is thinking maybe of catching the ball. The ball comes up right there off the top of the heel of his glove, up his chest, loads the bases.
22.
But he's thinking force at third.
Schofield.
Again, with a 2-0 lead, I think in retrospect he would have liked to have caught the ball, and he knows he has plenty of time to get Grich at first base. Again, it's one of those instantaneous decisions you have to make as a defensive player, and if you're a good defensive player, and Wade Boggs, as we said, is greatly improved, you usually thought those things out before the balls hit to you.
It's an error. The bases are loading, and Schofield with the count now 0-1. Downing is at third, DeCince at second, and Grich at first with 1 out. So Boggs, thinking double play, winds up with nothing. Bases loaded and 1 out. 2-0 Boston, 4th inning. Second Red Sox error of the game, and the third in the 2 games after they had gone 10 games in the regular season without an error.
They're trying to pitch Dick Schofield up in the strike zone. His power is down.
And he chops it toward the hole. It's backhanded by Owen, and he's too late to third. Couldn't get the ball out of his glove. And so the Red Sox commit another blunder, and the Angels get on the board, and it's 2-1. As the ball gets stuck in Owen's glove.
It's a heads-up play because he knows that the easiest play is to get the lead runner right in front of him. Take another look at it right there. About 4 or 5 steps, similar to last night. By the time he makes the play, the Sensei's into third safely. A lot of hustle by Doug DeCinces, not assuming that he is not going to be involved in the play. Beats the throw.
Say what? They scored a hit. 2-1, and Boone is the batter, and he pops it up in the infield, and the Red Sox will get a definite out here. This is the infield fly rule. And thus, in an inning in which they committed an error and should have been charged with a second, the only 2 outs have come on infield flies. You can't miss.
That's what I call a smart pitcher. A couple of grounders.
Right.
One goes for a hit. Probably should have been an error. The other one is an error, so you go for the pop-up.
And now Pettis is at the plate. So Schofield gets credit for an infield hit, which also gives him an RBI.
On the field.
Pettis, meanwhile, grounded out in the 3rd inning. 2 hits and a walk last night. To center field toward Armas, who comes charging in, makes the catch. Never a dull moment, huh? A run, 3 hits, an error, lead 3. Boston 2, California 1 after 3.5. 4th inning. In what has shaped up as a most interesting little confrontation here, with bad hops and errors base running as well. Keep in mind, Marty Barrett caught off second in the 1st inning, and that cost Boston a run. Red Sox on top 2-1 as we go to the bottom of the 4th. Tony Armas, Spike Owen, and Wade Boggs against Kirk McCaskill. Armas struck out in the 2nd inning. 1-0.
That's not unusual for Tony Armas. 3 years ago when he led the American League in home runs, also led them in strikeouts with 156. So very much of a free swinger. Disappointing year from a home run standpoint. Slow start. Platoon with Steve Lyons, who was eventually traded to the White Sox for Tom Seaver. John McNamara's basic plan was to platoon Steve Lyons, a left-handed hitter, with Tony Armas. Take a look at John.
Hit down to first, and Wally Joyner will handle it. 1 up and 1 down in the bottom of the 4th inning. And Spike Owen comes up. Owen with a bad hop single in the 2nd inning, and that led to a run.
5. Spike Owen. Shortstop, Owen.
Owen coming over to the Red Sox in August and has been earning his money defensively up until the last couple of games. As a hitter, he hit just 183 since the trade and wound up at 231 overall when you combine his figures with the Mariners.
He was not a favorite in Seattle of Dick Williams, who came on to be the manager there. Some people question his range on AstroTurf. Of course, here at Fenway Park, they have natural turf, and he's, as you said, done a good job defensively until the last 2 games. Yeah, it's a matter of trading a good-looking young rookie, Ray Quinones, maybe the future, for the present, which is right now, and it turned out to be an excellent trade. Not to mention the acquisition along with Spike Owens of Dave Henderson, who has given them that backup outfielder they so desperately needed.
2 balls, 1 strike to count. In there, and the count's 2-2. Game 3, the pitchers again will be John Candelaria for California and Oil Can Boyd for Boston. Candy now the number 3 starter, and Don Sutton, the number 4 starter, will work on Saturday. We saw Witt last night. He was brilliant. McCaskill today. Funny the way things worked out for the Angels. They had another good young pitcher, Ron Romanek, who had a terrible year, wound up in the minors. And all of a sudden, Candelaria comes back from the disabled list. And Sutton, the fountain of youth. And it's a different rotation. Chopper to Joyner, who short hops it and then tags him going by. So 2 away on 2 ground balls to Wally, and it will bring up Boggs.
26. Big Boggs.
Red Sox have been pretty silent offensively the last several days. They lost that 4-game series to the Yankees, and counting last night, the Sox came into today's game with 23 hits in their last 5 games. There are some breakdowns on the numbers on McCaskill and indicating to you that he gets stronger as he moves along. They get to him early, and they got to him early today for a couple of runs and 7 hits.
He did hit a lot of balls hard, and I think, though, that indicates to me that we talked about his relative inexperience. A lot of times young pitchers really don't know what they have. It takes them 2 or 3 innings to determine that.
Grounded to short, and Schofield throws out Boggs, and that's the first time the Red Sox have been set down 1-2-3. 4 complete at Fenway Park. Boston 2, California 1.
Hitter.
Rick Burleson to lead things off for California. Top of the 5th inning. Coming back to Fenway Park, he was the Red Sox regular shortstop in '75.
Come back here and play in the playoffs is a special feeling because I played my first 7 years of Major League Baseball here at Fenway, and it's a great baseball town. The fans are very knowledgeable about the game, and they're very excitable, and for me it's a bigger thrill than I think a lot of other players, but I'm happy for them.
And for Rick Burleson, and we detailed it last night, an amazing comeback. Missing, well, really the better part of the last 4 seasons, and then coming back to play not on a full-time basis in 1986, but on the active roster all season long.
A little disappointed about not playing more, but they've had some pretty good years from their middle infielders.
Grounded to short, and Owen guns him down. 1 away.
Come to think of it, he may be the only player that I can think of that came back from conventional rotator cuff surgery to be able to play, hit, and throw at a major league level. As you see Owens to his left, this is what they got him for. Buckner with a stretch.
Spike still having his problems.
21.
That throw starting to tail.
That's what they give the first baseman a big glove for.
Good save.
Wally Joyner. Infield hit and then flied out. Good breaking pitch, and the count is 0-1.
Just missed a home run the last time up. We talked a little bit last night. Everybody said, you asked me, are they pitching him differently? Yes. Maybe less breaking balls. And when you throw him a breaking ball, you want to spot on the outside corner, staying away with the fastball, making him hit the ball the other way, not giving as many balls to pull. But when you consider that he played a full season in the minor leagues last year, went to winter ball where he won the Triple Crown, probably played every day in spring training, then had a fantastic first half, went to the All-Star game, had the shoulder injury. 290 with 22 home runs and 100 RBIs is quite a year for a rookie. He's got to be a little bit tired, but try to get over that in the playoffs.
A drive to deep right field. Evans goes all the way back to the wall with Armas and gone into the bullpen. And Joyner, who just came up short, and Evans had to reach to take an extra base hit away from him in the third, has hit a home run here to tie the game. And that's 4 hits in the 2 games for Wally Joyner, who makes a little bit of history right there.
Everybody says, who does he remind you of? I said Freddie Lynn. Nice, long stroke. Takes a ball really on the outside part of the plate. Quick enough bat. Talked about that shoulder injury. Kept him from lifting weights. He's been able to do that the last month and just hits it in the bullpen. Not an easy place to hit home runs if you're left-handed.
Joyner hit 22 during the regular season, but that's his first home run in over 2 months. He had not hit one since the 5th of August. And Wally World has tied it at 2, up high. 1 ball and 1 strike to count on Downing. Downing has grounded out, singled and scored a run, leading off in the 4th inning. 2-1.
Really how you go from being a second-place ball club, as the Angels were last year, losing to the Royals by a game, to winning your division. You release somebody like Rod Carew, collectively along with the Angel first basemen last year, only hit 8 home runs, and you get 23 from a rookie.
Buckner handling Downing's pop-up, and there are 2 down here in the 5th inning. And DeCinces is the batter. So Wally Joyner, who told us last night he voted for himself as Rookie of the Year. What a great year, as most of you know, for rookies, especially in the American League, was Jose Canseco of Oakland, and Pete Incaviglia of Texas, and then Corey Snyder of Cleveland, who was called up in the middle of the season and wound up hitting 23 home runs.
Danny Tartabeau up in Seattle.
Sure. Swing and a miss, and the count is 0-1.
Well, that was Doug's A swing for a home run. Little smile afterwards. Saw that the first 2 swings last time, and then he went into a 2-strike defensive position and singled to left.
1-1 the count. 2 out, bases empty. Top of the 5th inning. Game 2 of the American League Championship Series, tied 2-2. DeCinces playing with the Angels in their Western Division Championship year of '82. Good breaking pitch. He got fooled, really fooled on it. Flinching and grimacing and unhappy with the call, and the count 1-2.
You might be unhappy that Bruce Hurst has such a good curveball. Again, Gedman catches it inside, but it's where the ball goes across the plate. And in Larry McCoy's estimation, the ball did go across the plate before Gedman caught it.
1-2. Hitters are, of course, more prone to being fooled under these lighting conditions right now. Bright sunshine, bathing the backdrop, and Hurst throwing out of the sun into the shadows. Split foul.
Everybody talks about the pressure of the playoffs, but I think another thing that makes them so difficult is the time situation. We'll be out in Anaheim, 2 5-o'clock games. You pointed out it does get a little bit darker earlier, but you're talking basically twilight games, and those types of situations, as does today, favors the pitcher. You don't pick up the ball as well.
And the diffused light of October, even in the day games. And think about your memories as a kid going back, thinking of World Series. There's so many of them in Yankee Stadium, and the way the shadows would creep across.
That's right between geography and history. Wanted to see who was ahead, the Dodgers or the Dodgers or the Yankees.
Take that little transistor to school with you, and you could see the shadows.
Who cares about Mesopotamia? Let's see how the Yankee score is.
Fouled away. Still 1-2.
You remember Mesopotamia, a great shortstop for the
second baseman, I thought.
Well, he was a middle infielder. Let's leave it at that.
Sold cars on the side, didn't he?
Well, back then, that's the only way you could augment your income.
Grounded is short. Owen has to wait for it. Throws, very high throw, and he gets saved by Buckner again. Spike still trying to find the mark. Joyner found the mark, though, and we're tied 2-2. Bottom of the 5th inning at Fenway Park in Boston. Al Michaels along with Jim Palmer. Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. We're tied 2-2, and Marty Barrett to lead off. And then in the foreground, Bill Buckner. And then Jim Rice. And so Barrett with a double
17.
and a single, 2 RBIs, but a base running blunder in the first inning that cost the Red Sox a run.
That's unusual.
And he is trying to etch his name alongside those with 5 consecutive hits in a championship series game. Or in a championship series. It doesn't have to be in one game. Barrett with 2 last night. And
All been on fastballs.
0-1 account. Kirk McCaskill, who's back even now. In there again in the count 0-2. Red Sox with 2 errors. And one of them by Boggs led to a run in the 4th. One and 2. Marty Barrett playing a spot occupied for so many years by Bobby Doerr, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown this August. Breaking pitch is in there for strike 3. So Bando and Rivers and Matthews and the gang are not joined by Barrett. Down he goes.
Buckner.
It certainly does. And Kirk McCaskill with 10 games in the 1986 season with 9 strikeouts or more. And a pretty good example of how he does it. Sets you up with a fastball and then throws you a curve blowing away at the knees. Touch on what I was talking about earlier. We saw a graphic how he gets stronger, more effective. A lot of times young pitchers come out of the bullpen and they really don't know what is working for them and not. And that's part of maturing as a pitcher, getting experience, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 innings. We saw that last night. Clemens tried to throw the ball by everybody. Became a pitcher in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, so they caught up with him in the 7th inning and was very effective. That was the first 66 pitches. In fact, I was talking to Wes Gardner, who was part of the Schiraldi trade for Bob Ojeda, who went to the Mets and the Red Sox. He said he was keeping chart. And he said, Roger, you've thrown about 60 pitches and only 2 breaking balls. And then he went to the curveball, a couple of changeups and so forth, and was more effective. So McCaskill is throwing a variety of pitches, and it seems to be working.
Hit toward the middle and a base hit in the center field. So Bill Buckner is at first base with 1 out in the bottom of the 5th inning. And Jim Rice, who has been silent in the 2 games thus far, will try to get noisy. Rice is 0 for 6 and has yet to hit a ball out of the infield in the 2 games. Jim with 20 homers this season and 351 lifetime.
Lifetime batting average of 302 going into the season. Certainly enhanced that by hitting 324 this year. Talking to him before the game, and he said, it seems like they want to try to get me out inside, so I'm going to have to look for the ball in. See if he does that.
High and hard, and it's 0-2. Away. 1 ball, 2 strikes on Rice, who is playing in postseason action for the first time. Again, he was hurt in '75 at the end of the regular season and missed the playoff series. Fouls it away again. Boy, there's an interesting little irony here, too. Jim Rice fractured his wrist in September of '75, thus did not play in the playoffs or in that great series against the Reds. The man who threw the pitch, Vern Rule, who is on the Angels staff. 11 years later. Rules with the Tigers at the time. Breaking ball, and the count 2-2. Down he goes on a breaking pitch again, and so Rice is a very silent 0 for 7. And that's 4 strikeouts for McCaskill.
Another great curveball. Starts about belt high and ends up on the ground. Pretty good indication. If you look at the hitters, you can see them squinting. It is not easy to see. Throwing a ball, it's supposed to be white, but by the time you put that Mississippi mud on it, kind of a cocoa brown, throwing out of a background that is bright and sunny. Just not the best time to hit. So if you can make quality pitches, and both pitchers have been able to do that, you're going to be effective.
Little squibber foul, and the count 0-2. They may be squinting, but Joyner was pure 20-20 on his drive to right field to tie at the top of the 5th.
A bad array of home runs, 26, for a guy that George Steinbrenner said couldn't hit right-handers, which is why they originally made the trade.
Jesse Barfield had the most, 31 off right-handers, and Barfield, of course, led the majors in homers with 40. 2-2. Red Sox with a run in the first and 1 in the second to lead 2-0, and then the Angels with singletons in the 4th and 5th.
Really, both pitchers are pitching the way you should in Fenway Park. Not a whole lot of walks. If you're going to give up runs, give them up one at a time. Stay away from the big inning.
2-2 to Baylor, missing, ball 3. So a full count, and that means Buckner, chippy ankle and all, off and running with a pitch from first base.
Well, the only walk McCaskill's had so far is to Donnie Baylor, and that's after that long fly ball. So 31 home runs, you have a lot of respect for a guy's power, and he can make a 2-2 game 4-2 in a hurry.
And it's inside, ball 4. Boone, as usual, trying to frame it, but McCoy says no. And now the chance again of Dewey forever.
Well, here's what we're talking about, framing it. Ball's a backdoor curveball. Watch Boone just kind of pull the ball in, hoping that McCoy, who's sitting on the inside shoulder, had too good a view to really be fooled by Bob Boone. And again, walking in the clubhouse, and we walked in early this morning, first thing Billy Buckner said, he kept getting pitches 3 inches outside last night, talking about Mike Witt. Again, talking about what Bob Boone is able to do as a catcher. Expands the width of the plate.
Evans fouling it at the plate, and the count is 0-1. Gene Mock, who will watch his club go home at worst 1-1. And naturally, he's hopeful of a 2-0 advantage as we proceed to Anaheim for Game 3 on Friday. Two on and 2 out, and the 0-1 to Evans is a chopper foul. 0-2. Evans has gone hitless thus far in the 2 games. Evans with 26 home runs this year. His whole career with the Red Sox.
Very structured hitter, Al. You can see a very unusual stance up on his left toe, and you see how he turns it in. That's to keep that left shoulder in, to stay in. Wants to move towards the pitcher. Curveball just misses. Annually, a very slow start. He talked about leading off the year with a home run last night, then went 0 for 19. Needs a lot of extra hitting.
Reaching for it, and it's still a ball and 2 strikes.
Batting instructor for the Red Sox, Walt Reniak. Say this is not his #1 pupil. Most likely, he'd say that's Wade Boggs. He wins the batting championship just about every year, but hours Evans spends with him.
And he pops it up a mile high back of second base, and it's Griggs and it's Schofield looking at each other, and it's in there to give Boston the lead. A very, very high pop-up, and you knew right away that they were in trouble.
The minute you know their look right here, you'll see Bobby take a look at Schofield. That's a little bit after the fact, but he took one look at Dick Schofield early, realized that Dick Schofield wasn't going for the ball, and made the aborted try to catch it.
And that's a 145-foot double for Evans. As Laxman goes to the mound, nothing doing in the California bullpen. So some bizarre runs today. Three-2 Red Sox in the bottom of the fifth inning. Evans given credit for a double. And Gedman fouls it away. Throw to third, and Baylor gets back. So Baylor is at third, and Evans is at second. Two down. Red Sox ahead 3-2. Still 1-2. They originally flashed double on the board, and now the totals reflect, and now they're going to change them back on the manual scoreboard in left field to reflect the double. First base open, and the right-hand batting Armas is on deck. And the 1-2 pitch is fouled away again. Red Sox getting a run in the bottom of the second inning on a bad hop single and a ground ball lost in the sun. And now Evans with a pop fly lost in the sky by Griggs. Breaking ball low. 2-2. Baylor and Evans.
You can see how carefully McCaskill is pitching to Gedman. Does have first base open. Make a decision here, 3-2. You don't want to give up 2 more runs. Would you rather pitch to Tony Armas, as we said, a home run threat, but also somebody that does not hit quite as well as Rich Gedman.
Check swing, and it's in there anyway, and it's, I believe, strike 3 to begin with. And Boone is now gesturing toward first base.
What the fuck?
And Gedman is arguing the call at the plate. So a most unusual ending to the bottom of the fifth inning. Gedman upset about the call.
He's saying he did not swing. Take a look for yourself.
And the inning complete with the Red Sox having the lead.
Saturday, the college football excitement.
Boston on top 3-2, and George Hendrick to lead things off. 0-1. The bottom of the fifth ending, Boone just trying to make sure that they got the out at first base to make it official, even though what Bob did is scoop the ball up. Then the disputed call, or disputed by Gedman anyway, for strike 3. Pop up, and in the shade comes Buckner to make the catch. One away. And in the bottom of the fifth inning, with Gedman going down on strikes, McCaskill wound up striking the side out. But in between, the Red Sox take the lead on the pop fly lost in the sun. Here's Gritch. Singled, reached on an error. Line foul. And the count is 0-1. Here's a look as Chet Forte punches up a shot from center field. Gives you some idea of what it's like in the outfield with the glare and the glistening sun. And looking in at the shade. And it's particularly tough right now for the right fielder.
Well, this is one of those fields when you come out to do your workups, you go right to left field and center field, especially about 5:30 to stay out of the sun because it is the sun field. Almost impossible to see a line drive off the bat.
Gritch with a base hit, and so Bobby is on for the third time. 2 singles, and he's reached on an error.
You go back to the one-game playoff in 1978. The ball that Lou Piniella lost in the sun was able to catch on one hop, keep in front of him. Could have turned that playoff, really that playoff game, entirely the other way. The Red Sox could have been winners instead of losers.
Schofield, 1 for 2. And the one hit, a highly debatable one. That was the ground ball which Owen fielded, couldn't get out of his glove, and threw late to third, trying for the fourth. Bruce Hurst trying to hold on to a 3-2 lead.
Really what he's trying to do is get them to Calvin Schiraldi in the bullpen. That's going to be the case. Something that you have to keep in mind. You saw Bob Stanley come in last night. The first hit was a hanging slider to Downing for 2 more runs. So something you have to watch is how long will McNamara go with his starters.
Base hit into center field. So Schofield with a single to center and holding at second. Taking the turn, Bobby Gritch. And the Angels with 2 on and 1 out, and Bob Boone coming up.
Well, Schofield, a far superior hitter the last couple years, set his powers down. It's a low fastball. He almost hits Hurst right in the forehead. Ducks under it. First and second.
And Bill Fisher will be going to the mound, and the Red Sox will commence activity in their bullpen. As the Angels have now wrapped out 8 hits in 5 1/3 innings. We've had 17 hits in the game, and yet only 5 runs, and Steve Crawford is throwing in the pen. And Crawford, middle and long reliever, was activated, came off the disabled list, and he was the last man added to the roster when it was determined that Tom Seaver would not be ready to pitch in the playoffs. Meanwhile, a look there at what Clemens did last night, along with Witt and McCaskill and Hurst today in terms of velocity and numbers of pitches.
Clemens, who threw all those pitches over 95, 8 runs, 7 earned. So changing speeds, making good pitches, location sometimes is more important, even though we did not see the real Roger Clemens last night. The biggest question is in everybody's mind was the 10 days off, really only an inning and third or inning and 2/3 in 10 days that affected him. No doubt it did. That and the Angels' ability to hit the ball hard.
1 ball, 1 strike on Boone. California with Bobby Gritch off to his lead at second. And Dick Schofield at first. Tying and go-ahead runs on base with 1 out. And that's wrapped into left field for a base hit. Rice up to the ball, and they are holding him at third, and as he rounds third, Gritch is tagged out, and Gritch is really angry with Moose Stubing, the third base coach, because Stubing never gave a sign. I was looking at Stubing, and Moose was not giving Gritch a sign, and that's why Bobby is furious. And he had nowhere to go because as he tried to go back, Schofield was heading toward third.
Well, in this ballpark, very difficult to score on a hard hit ball to left field. And what Rice does is hit the cutoff man. Boggs with a nice play. You're out.
Again, it is a mistake by Moose Stubing. What makes third base coaching so difficult, you have to make it. You can see right there, Bobby looking. It's too late. He slips, he knows he's out, and then he becomes furious.
And 2 on and 2 out, and the pitch in for a strike to Pettis. And the count is 0-1.
And it's not something you like to do as a player to show up your coach, but I think it shows the intensity that the Angels have, Bobby Grich especially. That's why he's had the type of career he's had. One of the more intense players that I ever played with. Wants to win very badly.
0-2. And so base running blunders have cost each team a run. Barrett trapped between second and third on a grounder to the left side in the first inning. Cost Boston a run. And now Grich rounding third and tagged out. So 2 on and 2 out, and 0-2 on Pettis. Half swing foul. Still 0-2.
Something they talked about in New York last year when Bobby Valentine, third base coach for the Mets, went to manage down in Texas. They said he was very aggressive. It's a very difficult position. If you have been a third base coach for a long time in Fenway Park, you usually don't even think of sending a runner in that situation.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
You know your hitter, Bob Boone. You know they're not playing him very deep in left field. Ball's hit hard. Even a left fielder with a bad arm is going to make a decent throw. And if you take a look at Moose Stubing, I'm sure, no doubt, very disappointed that he did not hold up good.
And Hurst gets out of it. The Red Sox with some rabbit feet in the 6th and a 3-2 lead after 5 1/2.
Call. With 2 runners on, a batter hits a ground ball to the second baseman. But after he touches the ball, the second baseman collides with the runner from first. Is the runner out? You make the call. Because the runner ran into the second baseman after he had a chance to field the ball, it's not considered interference. So if you said the runner was not out, then you made the right call.
We're going to the bottom of the 6th inning at Fenway Park in Boston with the Red Sox on top trying to square the series, leading 3-2. And for Boston in the bottom of the 6th inning, it'll be Armas, Owen, and Boggs against Kirk McCaskill. Boy, it's been a bizarre game with base running blunders and fly balls lost in the sun and ground balls lost in the sun. And non-signs by the third base coach, and it's 3-2 Boston in the bottom of the 6th inning. Armas hits a chopper toward the hole, backhanded by Schofield, and he gets him. 1 pitch and 1 away. And Spike Owen coming up. He's 1 for 2.
Spike Owen. Shortstop.
Gene Mock, and behind him, Moose Stubing. The irony here, and Reggie Jackson comes into the picture. Stubing is a basketball official, and a good one, in the offseason, so he has taken a lot of heat for calls through the years, and he'll take some heat for a non-call today.
Well, he knows he made a mistake.
Sure.
Saw Reggie standing in front of him, trying to shield him. Again, this is a team game. Part of winning is having good coaching, and it's not to indicate that Moose is not a good coach. He's done a fine job as their batting coach. He made a mistake, and it's happened.
Yep. And you're exactly right. Nobody knows it more than Stubing right now. Or feels worse about it, I'm sure. 1-2 the count. You're right, though. The third base coach really does take a lot of heat, and that's been the case in Boston this summer as well. They've been getting on Rene Latchman.
Well, they got on
2-2.
They got on Bud Harrelson when he took over for Bobby Valentine in New York. They said he wasn't aggressive enough.
Yeah. It's
announcement yesterday in Baltimore, or excuse me, Monday. Cal Ripken will be the new manager of Baltimore. He's been a great third base coach, and they will miss him. They will probably be a very good manager. 30 years, done it at every level, but it's somebody you need on a ball club because it's a very important job. You know, at first you just tell him, go to second. Plays usually in front of you. The third, Rich looked at Stubing all the way, and he was relying on him. He just wasn't able to give him any help.
Joyner makes the play unassisted, 2 down.
Those things happen.
And there are those in Los Angeles and Southern California who wrongfully think that Joey Amalfitano, the third base coach of the Dodgers, was responsible for Pedro Guerrero's injury in the spring on the slide at third.
How about the famous Willie Randolph play?
Sure.
Back in the playoffs, I believe, 1980.
Mike Ferraro.
Right.
And Steinbrenner, and the shot of Steinbrenner, and the disgust so evident in his face. So rarely do they get the credit, but they sure get a lot of blame. Coach in third.
See something saw off camera. Gene Mauch defending his third base coach. He knows he made a mistake too.
Liner and perfect positioning by Grich. That's a base hit normally, but not where Bobby was playing. Down go the Sox, and we go to the 7th. 3-2 Boston.
Award winner Dwight Gooden goes against the man who could win it this year. 1986 strikeout king Mike Scott. New York meets Houston. Game 1 tonight.
This ABC Sports exclusive is being brought to you by Budweiser. Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you.
Top of the 7th inning. Tight one at Fenway. Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. The Angels winning last night behind Mike Witt 8-1, and the Red Sox leading today 3-2 as Rick Burleson, the leadoff hitter, top of the order in the top of the 7th inning. Looks at a strike. Burleson, Joyner, and Downing with Bruce Hurst working for Boston. Burleson 0 for 3 today and pinch hit last night, fouling out. Fly ball to right center and shallow. In comes Evans along with Armas, and Tony can't make the catch. Armas playing deep and getting a late start, but it still looked as if he'd make the play until the very end.
Well, an excellent effort by Tony, but scouting report, he's lost a couple of steps. Just can't come up with that. No doubt a couple of years ago would have made the play. You're playing Burleson around to right center.
Wally Joyner, first base.
Take another look at Wally Joyner's home run that tied up the game at 2-2. High fastball out over the plate. Really gets into it.
Joyner also with a deep drive to right field, which Evans caught at the barrier in the 3rd. And he takes a strike. So Burleson at first base. Joyner looking down at Stubing. Not out of the question that Wally would bunt, even with his power. He's laid down several this season, but he's also swinging a hot stick. And Mauch has to think about that. And the question that Gene has to think about now, do you want to advance the runner, as would be the case perhaps off times lefty against lefty in the regular season, or the way he's swinging the bat, do you want him to swing away? 1-1.
In most instances, managers like to take advantage of that hole between first and second. You have Buckner holding Burleson on, creates a good situation where a routine ground ball will most likely set up a first and third situation. Makes it easier to score a run. Sacrifice fly can do that. See a curveball taken high for ball 1.
And 34,000 roar in disapproval.
Again, you can see Larry McCoy down in his crouch. Pretty good looking pitch. If you're a pitcher, you want it. Of course, if you're a hitter, you want it to be called a ball, and it was.
Joyner has sacrificed 10 times this year, all against lefties, but takes low, ball 3. 3-1, and the ace of the bullpen is up, Calvin Schiraldi. is throwing in the Boston pen.
We talked about Giraldi overpowering fastball. Again, with an off day, if you're John McNamara, you have the luxury of maybe bringing him in an inning earlier than you normally would.
That's grounded to the right side. Barrett to Owen to first, and Buckner stays on the bag. Billy Buckner with the palpitation.
Oh, he's worried about a collision. We talked about the fastness of the infield here. You see how quick the ball gets to Barrett. Owens with a throw. A little bit up the line. Again, Owens has not been very accurate with his throw. Buckner stays on the bag. They easily get Joyner.
Two down, and Brian Downing is the batter, and he takes high for a ball. 1-0.
There is a 45-foot line the runner's supposed to stay in, but that's not always the case. So if you're a first baseman, you have to come across the bag sometimes, even though that wasn't an extreme circumstance. You sometimes worry about the collision factor, and I think that's what Billy was pounding his heart about.
And the last thing Buckner would love at this point would be for somebody to step on that foot.
It's interesting. I talked to Dr. Arthur Pappas, who is the team physician up here, and talked last night about the left ankle, but really he's had trouble with both ankles. Left one's the one that's going to be operated on.
2 balls and 2 strikes, an appeal, and no, says Terry Cooney.
Quite a contrast to last night, Al. After the 8-1 deficit late in the ball game, fans were not in the game, very much so today. They are cheering on almost every pitch.
And Brian Downing, who will be 36 tomorrow, gets no early gift from Hurst. After 6.5, 3-2 Boston. All right, scoring summary. First inning, Barrett drives in Boggs with a double, 1-0. Second inning, Owen with a bad hop single, Boggs a base hit, McCaskill lost in the sun, and then Barrett with another base hit, 2-0. The Angels got a run. Key play there, the error by Owen following the error by Boggs in the 4th inning to make it 2-1. Joyner's home run tied the game in the 5th, and then Evans with what appears graphically as an RBI double, lost in the sun between Grich and Schofield, and that was the key blow, so to speak, in the bottom of the 5th, and the difference in the game right now. Bottom of the 7th, 3-2 with Barrett leading off for Boston, taking a strike. Barrett, Buckner, and Rice against McCaskill. No balls and 2 strikes to count.
Well, hitting is such a guessing game. Saw the graphic 4 for 7. They've all been on fastballs. Looks like Marty Barrett's going up to home plate looking for a breaking ball. McCaskill keeps throwing him curveballs until he gets ahead. Then he goes back to the curveball. He's had a number of fastballs to hit, but it looks like he's just sitting on the breaking ball. He says, well, that's the pitch they're getting me out with. And then he mixes his pitches up. Of course, you got to give a lot of credit to Bob Boone. In fact, all the Angel pitchers do that. They said it's just a lot easier to think out there sometimes. In fact, sometimes you have trouble thinking, and it's nice to have a catcher that's able to do it for you.
1 ball, 2 strikes to count.
Another thing a lot of the Boston hitters pointed out was the way that Boone can move in and out. Look the way he just kind of glides to the outside part of the play. In contrast to Rich Gedman, who is not caught near as long as Boone. It's more getting up and moving out there. And a lot of times they feel that the hitter can see that.
To right field could be a tough play for Hendrick, and a foul ball, as it turns out. Still 2-2. So Hendrick goes back to right. There's a man who's looking for another World Series ring. He already owns 2 of them. Oakland in '72 and St. Louis in '82.
Another one of the veteran players that Gene Mauch stuck with. Came over to the Angels late in the season, hit about 122, had a miserable year at Pittsburgh, hit about 140 in spring training.
That's lifted foul. And still 2-2. Bob Boone. 5 years now with California after the long stint at Philadelphia. And again, he's behind only Al Lopez in terms of games caught. And the way things are going, he'll pass the senor. Ball, strike 3, and Barrett knows it. And that's 6 strikeouts for McCaskill. And he's set down 5 in a row now.
And looking for that curveball. Look at this fastball. Right outside part of the plate. Boone frames it. McCoy sees it. Barrett goes to the bench.
Bill Buckner, his base hit in the 5th inning, setting up what turned out to be the tie-breaking run. He scored it, and it's dropped by Griggs. And Jody Buckner. No doubt who her favorite is. And now she'll root for a favorable scoring call, but she won't get it.
Well, this is going to be an error. Again, not an easy play, but one that Bobby Grich normally makes. Backhands it. Buckner does not run well, just cannot come up with it. Therefore, the error.
And Buckner going to a new insole at first base. And we've touched on it several times as we've covered Buckner through the years. When he came up with the Dodgers in the early 70s, he had a lot of speed. And then he suffered a very severely sprained ankle in a game against the Giants one night in '74. And it really cut him down. Jim Rice. 1-0. Rice still trying to hit the ball out of the infield. And I mean, he is really a quiet 0 for 7. 3 strikeouts, a foul out, and 3 little grounders. One and one.
You mentioned the 351 lifetime home runs. His bat has a way of getting noisy in a hurry. I saw Jim Rice say that ball is down. And judge for yourself, it is down. Again, look at the way he catches the ball out in front of him, giving the umpire a good chance of seeing the pitch. One of those pitches that if your glove goes down as you receive it, the umpire says, yeah, the ball was low. You let the ball come to you. Again, it's a matter of really, if you talk about some infielders, it looks like they have very soft hands. If you wanted to describe Bob Boone's hands behind the home plate, they are very soft. Just kind of cushions the ball.
A line in the center and a base hit, and Buckner will hobble into second. And so Jim Rice with his first hit of the playoffs. And the Red Sox with runners at first and second and 1 out, and Don Baylor coming up.
We'll talk about strength. He hits the same pitch he disagreed with being a strike, fights it off and hits it into center field on the line.
And that will provoke activity in the California bullpen. Don Baylor takes a breaking ball away. 1-0.
McCaskill's control has been perfect with the exception of Don Baylor. First time up, smashed a single off the bottom of the wall, and he walked him the next 2 times.
Late swing and the count 1-1. Baylor, who for years crowds the plate, gets hit a lot. In fact, nobody's been hit more in the history of the American League. This year he was plunked 35 times. Two and one count. Breaking ball hit foul. Still 2-2. Gary Lucas, the left-hander, and Doug Corbett, the right-hander, are throwing in the California bullpen. Their stopper, their closer, is Donnie Moore, but he's not up because the Angels don't have the lead.
They have Lucas up in case they get two hitters down the line for Rich Gedman, lefty versus lefty.
And it's 3-2. So 3-2 on Baylor with Buckner at second and Rice at first. And we'll see if they go.
Obviously a big pitch, and got behind 2-1 and threw him a curveball. You might see it again.
The runners stay 4-4. And the Dewey chant going up, and they're in full voice with the bases loaded. So Don Baylor's perfect day continues, a single and 3 walks. And those are the only walks yielded by McCaskill.
Again, that's what makes this lineup so much better than it was last year, the respect they have for Baylor. It gets Rice more pitches to hit. It puts Evans in a position where he's going to have more runners on base. Talking about a very patient hitter. Walked 97 times this year. Last year led the American League in walks with 114. This year was Wade Boggs.
Grounded to third, knocked down by DeCinces, and he doesn't make the tag. And Doug, who might have had a double play, gets nothing. 4-2 Boston.
It's just a matter of making the play or not. It's not an easy play. High curveball, hit very hard. Right here, he chooses to backhand it. Probably has a play at home plate. Tries to make the... Again, you take another look at it. Nice with a pretty good slide. Just misses him. Everybody's safe.
Gedman, the batter, takes outside. I'm wondering with his body language, I'm trying to guess what he was thinking. Was he thinking step on third, go to first? Was he thinking home? As Gedman grounds it down to second, and Gritch goes to Schofield 1. Back to first, and they still can't get the double play. And a second run will score as Baylor crosses the plate, and the Red Sox lead 6-2.
You have to give all the credit to Dewey Evans. Right here, perfect double play ball. Watch the slide. Right here, Schofield. Evans coming in hard, throws his hands up. May have even deflected off his hands. Continuation of this play is a on-his-knee throw wide of the mark at home plate for the second run.
And Laxman goes to the mound. And Schofield,
looked like he threw his hands up, which really is it's legal as long as you don't intentionally try to deflect the ball. Again, both hands up.
Well, he's making a case, or he could make a case for that being part and parcel of the slide to keep his balance. In any event, it works. It's a force and an error on Schofield, and it's up and in to Armas, and that's 3 errors in the inning now for the Angels.
Again, a team that we talked about, the only team that made less errors were the Toronto Blue Jays. For most of the season, the California Angels were leading the American League in the least amount of errors. Finished second in fielding.
2-1. It was Gritch's error on Buckner's grounder that opened the door. Then DeCinces makes the error. And Schofield gets charged with the third in the inning. And Armas is swinging a miss, and the count is 1-2. And Boston on top 6-2.
Go back to last night's ball game. It looked like all the great plays were made by the Angels. In this inning, been really incapable of making the ones they've had to make to stay in the game.
Grounded to third. DeCinces backs up, and the Angels finally get out of the inning. But they give Boston what amounts to 6 outs. And the Red Sox cash in for 3. Boston, as Armas comes out, Jim mentioning before that Armas has lost some speed. We saw him go a long way and not catch up with a pop fly single off the bat of Burleson. And Henderson, who came over in that Spike Owen deal along with Owen from Seattle, is the center fielder. Meanwhile, a nightmarish bottom of the 7th for the Angels. And they trail 6-2 as we go to the top of the 8th. And DeCinces to lead off. DeCinces, Hendrick, and Grich, and the pitcher's outside, ball 1. DeCinces is 1 for 3. In the air to right field. Fielding is Evans, and he makes the catch. And fortunately for Dwight, and for Hendrick as well, they'll only have to worry about the sun for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, the alternative to that is to play very shallow. That unfortunately doesn't help your pitching staff sometimes. Really, again, just another routine fly ball that's made a little bit more difficult. If you have to make a long run, a lot of times you have to take your eyesight off the ball, and by the time you look back into the sun, there's no way of picking it up.
0-1 the count on Hendrick. Hendrick 0 for 3 today. Buckner backs up. Nice play. Overhand flip just in time. Buckner is always up among the leaders. In fact, almost every year leads first baseman in assists, partly because of his lack of speed, and he needs the help in covering first, and obviously he needed it in that particular case. But he's got that 3-1 play down to a science.
Well, they give the edge in this series to Wally Joyner defensively over Buckner, but certainly has made some fine plays in games that we've done all year long, and I think he's a little bit underrated. He may be not as good as Joyner, but it's not going to hurt you that much at first base. Doesn't have the fleet of footness, so to speak, as he used to have. But when you play first base as long as Billy has, you know how to play the hitters, and that's sometimes major part of the game.
Little squibber down is short, and it's Owen over the first, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. Angels gone. Sox coming up from the bottom of the 8th. Boston ahead, 6-2. And we can tell you that ABC News World News tonight with Peter Jennings reporting live from Iceland, the site of the upcoming summit meeting. We'll be following your late local news. Palmer wants me to pronounce the capital. Reykjavik, right?
That's the way I would have said it.
I have flown over it many times on the polar route.
Keep name dropping. Everywhere we go, you name drop.
Now spell it. Meanwhile, new pitcher Gary Lucas in the bottom of the 8th inning. The left-hander taking over for Kirk McCaskill as the Angels go to the pen for the first time in the championship series. And that's looped foul back above our heads in the count 1-1. That gets your attention?
Yes, it will. Boy, Gary disabled most of the year with a bad back. Last year in Montreal, set up man for Jeff Reardon. A little bit of a sinker, slider pitcher. The type of guy you bring in, very much like the Red Sox used Joe Sambito to get that left-handed hitter out every once in a while, and then if the game is really in the balance, you go to your stopper, Donnie Moore.
McCaskill with 136 pitches. 6 runs, but only 3 of them earned.
Consider all the circumstantial things that happen. A very gutsy game. It doesn't change the score.
6-2 Boston. Bottom of the 8th inning. By the way, on a couple of occasions today, some profanity has leaked into our crowd mics and mics near the dugout. And It's offended some people. We're not happy about it, obviously. It's just the price you pay, I guess, for trying to get the presence and the sounds of the game. 3-1 pitch is up high, ball 4. So Owen draws the walk in the bottom of the 8th inning, and Boggs comes to the plate.
Well, as usual, Wade had a real bad year against lefties, only hit .355, won the batting championship at .357, so it really doesn't matter with what arm.
Boston, as Armas comes out, Jim mentioning before that Armas has lost some speed. We saw him go a long way and not catch up with a pop fly single off the bat of Burleson. And Henderson, who came over in that Spike Owen deal along with Owen from Seattle, is the center fielder. Meanwhile, a nightmarish bottom of the 7th for the Angels. And they trail 6-2 as we go to the top of the 8th. And DeCinces to lead off. DeCinces, Hendrick, and Grich, and the pitch is outside, ball 1. DeCinces is 1 for 3. In the air to right field. Fielding is Evans, and he makes the catch. And fortunately for Dwight, and for Hendrick as well, they'll only have to worry about the sun for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, the alternative to that is to play very shallow. That unfortunately doesn't help your pitching staff sometimes. Really, again, just another routine fly ball that's made a little bit more difficult. If you have to make a long run, a lot of times you have to take your eyesight off the ball, and by the time you look back into the sun, there's no way of picking it up.
0-1 the count on Hendrick. Hendrick 0 for 3 today. Buckner backs up. Nice play. Overhand flip just in time. Buckner is always up among the leaders. In fact, almost every year leads first baseman in assists. Partly because of his lack of speed. And he needs the help in covering first, and obviously he needed it in that particular case. But he's got that 3-1 play down to a science.
Well, they give the edge in this series to Wally Joyner defensively over Buckner, but certainly has made some fine plays in games that we've done all year long, and I think he's a little bit underrated. He may be not as good as Joyner, but it's not going to hurt you that much at first base. Doesn't have the fleet of footness, so to speak, as he used to have. But when you play first base as long as Billy has, you know how to play the hitters, and that's sometimes major part of the game.
Little squibber down is short, and it's Owen over the first, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. Angels gone. Sox coming up from the bottom of the 8th. Walks to the head. 6-2. And we can tell you that ABC News World News tonight with Peter Jennings reporting live from Iceland, the site of the upcoming summit meeting. We'll be following your late local news. Palmer wants me to pronounce the capital. Reykjavik, right? Reykjavik.
That's the way I would have said it.
I have flown over it many times on the polo route.
Keep name dropping. Everywhere we go, you name drop.
Now spell it. Meanwhile, new pitcher Gary Lucas in the bottom of the 8th inning. The left-hander taking over for Kirk McCaskill as the Angels go to the pen for the first time in the championship series. And that's looped foul back above our heads, and the count 1-1. That gets your attention?
Yes, it will. Well, Gary disabled most of the year with a bad back. Last year in Montreal, set up man for Jeff Reardon. A bit of a sinker, slider pitcher. The type of guy you bring in, very much like the Red Sox used Joe Sambito to get that left-handed hitter out every once in a while, and then if the game is really in the balance, you go to your stopper, Donnie Moore.
McCaskill with 136 pitches. 6 runs, but only 3 of them earned.
Consider all the circumstantial things that happened. A very gutsy game. It doesn't change the score.
6-2 Boston. Bottom of the 8th inning. By the way, on a couple of occasions today, some profanity has leaked into our crowd mics and mics near the dugout. And it's offended some people. We're not happy about it, obviously. It's just the price you pay, I guess, for trying to get the presence and the sounds of the game. 3-1 pitch is up high, ball 4. So Owen draws the walk in the bottom of the 8th inning, and Boggs comes to the plate.
Well, as usual, Wade had a real bad year against lefties, only hit .355, won the batting championship at .357, so it really doesn't matter with what arm you throw.
One and oh. Looking ahead to the 9th inning when the Angels come up, Schofield, Boone, and Pettis do up the bottom of the order. Off day tomorrow. Both teams fly out tonight. Work out in Anaheim tomorrow, and then Game 3 comes up at 8 Eastern time on Friday. And Roger Clemens behind Gedman at the moment in the Boston dugout. Clemens will go in either Game 4 or Game 5. If he doesn't go in 4, Al Nipper is penciled in. The Angels have already set Don Sutton in stone, as Gene Mark puts it, on Saturday. Candelaria Friday against Boyd.
It's nice in your 4th game to have a 15-game winner that's won over 300 games lifetime.
This is such a great series in terms of the individuals involved with the Jacksons and the Rices and the Baylors and the Boggs and people like that. The only thing that's really missing, though, is Seaver. Boy, Seaver against Sutton on Saturday would have been something. Bunted to third, to Sensei. Over to first base. Joyner gets the put out and down to second on the sacrifice. Goes Owen. So Spike at second with one away, and Barrett is the batter. And this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Fenway Park, Game 2, bottom of the 8th inning. Red Sox trying to square the best-of-7 series. And Marty Barrett is at the plate with Owen at second and one away.
Now batting, Marty Barrett, second baseman Barrett.
National League cranking up tonight. Game 1 in about 2.5 hours from Houston. And you will see it here on ABC. Their second game is tomorrow. Meanwhile, there is Nipper, and on the right, of course, Clemens. And so you're looking at the two guys who, one of whom will pitch on Saturday. Two and 0 the count.
Brings up an interesting thought. If you do pitch Clemens on Saturday and you're down 2-1, conceivably that's, of course, talking about the fact that the Angels lose today and then win on Friday. What do you do on the final game? You have to maybe bring him back with 3 days rest twice in a row, something that he hasn't done all year. So, interesting thing to think about.
And what it means, too, is with the Angels, with their 4-man rotation, if we did go to a 7th game and they stayed in that rotation, it would mean Candelaria would pitch Game 7. He pitched 3 and 7, as did, let's say, Saberhagen in the World Series last year. 3 and 7. So there are 2 ways to go. With your staff ace, you can either pitch him in Game 1, 4, and 7, or opt for 1 and 5 and have him come out of the bullpen in 7.
Candelaria with an outstanding year at 10 and 2, but did not pitch that well against the Angels. Earned run average up over 4 runs per game. And again, did not, against the Red Sox. But has always been a money pitcher. World Series playoff times in the past. This is 86.
Ripped into center field for a base hit. Owen is being held at third as the throw is cut off, and back to at first and third, and Buckner coming up.
The Angels didn't execute defensively very well this time. See Barrett right up the middle, something he does so well. And when you ask Gene Mauch about Gary Pettis, he says he's like playing shortstop in center field. He charges the ball, Sensei cuts it off, and you almost get the out at first. Instead, you set up the first and third situation. With only one out, fly ball scores a run. Stay out of the double play. You can move your runners. As we've said, there's very little speed on the Red Sox team, but Marty Barrett, 41 stolen bases total for the Red Sox. Barrett had 15 of them, thrown out 7 times. So you're going to move a runner. You have a contact hitter at the plate. You have a guy at first that can run. You got a left-handed pitcher on the mound with a pretty good move.
1-0. 6-2 Boston. A lot of things to munch on when you recount this game. Bobby Grix thrown out, rounding third, and Moose Dubing didn't make the call. The 3 errors. The pop fly lost in the sun off Evans' bat. Down the line in left field and into the corner goes Downing to make the catch. Owen tags. Throw goes to second. 7-2. And Billy Buckner with a sacrifice fly.
And those first and third situations set it up for a veteran hitter to get a pitch he can just hit a fly ball on, and Billy Buckner did that. He had a run.
Gooden and Scott at 8 Eastern time. Game 1 from Houston tonight. Meanwhile, Latchman goes to the mound. And Latchman does make the changes on occasion when he goes to the mound. It doesn't have to be Mauch, and that will be the case here with Rice coming up. We'll be back. Let's do a little what we call, I guess, time frame or still frame time lapse at this point. That's what it looked like at 3:35, middle of the second inning. And as the day progressed, as it normally does, 4:30. That's where the shadows were. And that's the way it was at 5:15 in Beantown. And now live and direct at 5:42 Eastern Daylight Time. Encased in shadow is Fenway Park. And on the mound is Doug Corbett. Corbett, who wears eye black, very rare for a pitcher, but he doesn't need it right now. Jim Rice at the plate. It's a high drive to deep right center field. Pettis goes back. Gone.
Well, there's that noisy bat we talked about. Corbett, a sinker ball pitcher, throws the ball down the strike zone. Last time they threw Rice a low fastball, he zinged it into center. This time he deposited into the right center field bleachers. Really into the bullpen. I talked earlier, Al, about the 351 lifetime home runs. You're that strong, you just hit some fly balls, and they just carry and carry and carry and end up over the wall.
9-2 Boston as Baylor fouls it away in the count 0-1. Another look.
And this is one of the strengths of Jim Rice, which is why he has always hit for an average. He does not have to pull the ball to hit for power. Something he's done very often this year, staying out of double plays, hitting the ball the other way. That one went right out of the ballpark.
There he is, the man from Anderson, South Carolina.
Prodigious home runs and prodigious tee shots. I once played golf with him at Spyglass Hill, 619-yard par 5. We're playing in a scramble where you take the best drive, you hit it 383 yards. That one only went about 50 yards?
A little bit less.
Yeah, a little bit less, but I think he probably enjoyed that one a little more.
2-1 pitch is low, ball 3. 3-1 count.
Doug Corbett has done a nice job for the Angels this year with 10 saves when Donnie Moore was hurt. Also had the, I guess, distinction of throwing home runs in 5 consecutive games in August. Something that's kind of unusual for a pitcher that has a ratio of throwing 3 ground balls to every 1 fly ball, which is the best record in the last 11 years. Any single baller.
Hit foul. Tough way to get a souvenir. 3-2.
Especially when the first 5 people in front of you get out of the way.
And Baylor breaks his bat, and he'll get a new one. And we want to wish our audio engineer, man by the name of Jack Kelly, the very best, who's retiring this week after 39 years here at ABC. Much success to you, Jack. We'll miss everything about you except the cigarettes. Stop smoking. Good man, Jack Kelly. 3-2 the count. 2 out, bases empty, 9-2 Boston. Still 3-2.
You know, ironic, when you assess last night's ball game, I suppose before it happened, you'd say, as Reggie Jackson, it was kind of the game would be decided by 1 pitch. The score was 8-1. Today, you have a 17-game winner against Bruce Hurst.
That's ripped into left field and off the wall. And Baylor with a long single.
And now you see why they pitched around him the middle 3 times. 2 rockets off the wall and 3 walks. Perfect day. 11. Been on base all 5 times. 11. Again, Brian Downing playing the carom perfectly. Holding Don Baylor to a single. So again, when you expect a good pitching matchup, look at the scoreboard, and it's 9-2.
Evans at the plate. Looks at the strike, and the count 0-1. Great play by the Sensei. And at the end of 8, it's Boston 9, California 2. This Saturday, number 1 ranked Miami takes on West Virginia, or 6th ranked Oklahoma against Texas in their annual showdown. That's this Saturday, and a reminder to stay tuned for World News Tonight, originating this evening from Iceland, following your late local news. Well, it is truly the happy hour in Boston, and everybody is ready to celebrate. 7-run lead. Schofield leads off in the 9th inning. Looks to the strike, 0-1. Schofield, Boone, and Pettis against Bruce Hurst, who's been masterful again in Fenway Park.
Down on the field before the ball game. The skeptics, and there are many of them up here, even though the Red Sox have proved them wrong, coming really along to win their first playoff, or excuse me, get into their first playoff since 1978, said, yeah, Hurst can't win the big ones.
Little looper into shallow center, and Barrett loved it.
And of course, he did pitch the 2-0 shutout against Toronto. Pretty good hitting ball club. Led the American League in runs scored. And I said, when is the last time he ever did have to pitch a big one? Well, today was a big game, and so far he's been pitching quite handily.
Bob Boone, 1-3. 0-1 the count. Well, amongst this happy throng, little Ryan Hurst, who's nearly 4 years old, and Holly Hurst. Watching Dad. One and one. They don't get the appeal. First base umpire Terry Cooney. No swing. 1 ball and 1 strike. So we're on the verge of this series being even at a game apiece, meaning there will be a 5th game on Sunday in Anaheim. Outside, 2-1. And the Anaheim schedule, again, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock in Anaheim, Friday and Saturday, and then a day game at 3 Eastern time on Sunday. Fouled away, and the count 2-2.
Rather interesting thing in the interview that you did with Bruce Hurst. The most impressive thing of that graphic is the 0 base on balls. Last night we saw Roger Clemens, normally great control, walk 3 in 1 inning, led to a big inning. Hurst says you don't change the way you pitch when you pitch in Fenway Park, and part of that is throwing strikes, and he's been able to do that all day.
He was the American League's pitcher of the month in September, and it's not a bad start in October.
We talked about had the one other start against the Yankees in that somewhat meaningless weekend series. Did not pitch well, but I wouldn't say that he's been overpowering, but anytime you hold a good hitting ball club like the Angels to 2 runs, the team that scored 8 runs last night, you've done a great job.
The center is Henderson. And there are 2 down with Gary Pettis coming to the plate. And so the Fenway throng collectively rising to its feet. And that chance is Bruce. And Bruce will have to wait at least another batter as Pettis singles in the center. So Gary gets his first hit of the day. The Angels have all singles outside of Joyner's home run. And Burleson comes up for the 5th time. 9-2 Boston. The wonderful vagaries in this sport. Everybody around here so down after last night. Get beat 8-1. Clemens loses. Now on the verge of getting even. Knocked down by Boggs. Goes to second. And we are even. The series stands at a game apiece as we head west. Boston 9, California 2.
Sunday.
Game 1 of the National League Championship Series about 2 hours away. Dwight Gooden and Mike Scott as they get going in the Astrodome. And coming up following your local news, ABC World News tonight, live with Peter Jennings reporting from Iceland. And that's coming up very shortly. Final here was 9-2, and we'll be back in a moment.
The #1 team in the nation, the Miami Hurricanes, take on West Virginia. Or 6th-ranked Oklahoma tackles Texas. Coverage begins with College Football Today, Saturday.
As always, our thanks to Alan Roth and to Steve Hurt for their work as we get set to talk to you on Friday. And we can tell you that ABC's coverage of the American League Championship Series has been brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light. And by your Blue Cross and Blue Shield plan, who remind you to carry the caring card. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, goodbye from Boston, where the Red Sox square the series, beating the Angels 9-2. Stay tuned for ABC News World News tonight with Peter Jennings reporting live from Iceland following your local news. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. United flies more people to Hawaii than any other airline. Nobody knows Hawaii like United. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports.